Namaste. Good morning, Shanti. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to my heart and welcome to our Sunday meditation. If you will close your eyes for a moment, we will begin with a short meditation. O great Spirit, saints and sages of all times, of all places, most beloved and precious Lord, most beloved gurus of the holy Kriya lineage, Om Shri Babaji Ya Namaha, Om Shri Lahiri Mahasaya Ji Ya Namaha, Om Shri Teshwar Ji Ya Namaha, Om Shri Paramahansa Yogananda Ji Ya Namaha, Om Shri Shali Ji Ya Namaha, Om Shri Goswami Kriyananda Ji, most beloved Guru, Namaha. Sweep clear our paths, vivify us, strengthen us, bring health and healing to our bodies this morning. Bring all who are here, all who are joining us, that which they need most. May we hear that which we need. May we absorb that which we need. May we remember that which we need most. For your blessings, we are most grateful. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Have you heard the story of Ratnagar? Well, maybe you have, but let me tell it to you anyway. There once was a family in India. They were very, very well known, let us say. Generations of the family had practiced the same occupation, if you will. And they had honed the occupation. They were robbers. They were robbers. Now, in every generation, they had to send their sons out, get them married, and they were just sending their sons, and they do the same with the daughters, find spouses for them and send them to different parts of the country or different parts of the world. Because, you can't have your occupation as robbery if you don't expand your territory. So it comes Ratnagar's term. Grandma and Papa make arrangements for him to get married. And they say, we're going to send you to the south to expand our territory. We're going to give you a little seed money. You've got a wife now, and we're going to give you seed money to get a house. Can't be the kind of house you're used to living in, You have to earn this kind of house. But it was a good house. Had 4 walls. Had a nice little hole in the ceiling where the smoke from the fire could go up. Had a doorway that you could walk through, and there were 3 windows in the house too, with woven mats that could be drawn down. And it was just on the edge of town. Gives privacy, Now, Ratnagar was expected to figure out what he was going to do for a living. Didn't matter to the family what he did. He had to expand their business opportunities, that's all. So, the house is on the way out of town. And so it's along the road, kind of not exactly on the road, but people are going by, not too terribly far from the house. It wasn't too much effort. Now, Ratnagar had been well trained in planning and introspection. Because, if you come from a good robber family, you have to think before you rob. If you're going to make a good living at this, it's not just a snatch and grab. You can't make good money from snatch and grab. You have to think it through. So he looked all around, what could he do to make a living? What could he do? How could he elevate his family and take care of his financial needs? Oh, robbing is what he knew. But the truth is, Ratnagar was kind of a little lazy. It's fine to rob, but a little lazy. So he's taking a gander one day, and he's walking down the road, and he's away from the house. Nobody can see what he's doing. And he notices that this particular path, the sadhus walk by. The sadhus walk by. The sadhus, the holy people. Generally, they're the men. The sadhus in India tend to be more the men than the women. Now, some people say they don't work. I say they work extra hard. They can only stay in one place for 3 nights. And they're dependent upon other people for their food and their money. And so they beg. Sometimes people put money in their bowl. Sometimes people put food in their bowl. And he counts. Wow. I'm not seeing anybody but these sadhus. This must be on the way to some great temple. So four of them go by, just flash, flash, flash. Wonder what they have in those bowls. Wonder how much I could sell their robes for. The birth of an idea was forming in his mind. And so he did what any good son from a robber family would do. He plotted it out. Kind of felt a little guilty the first time, but you can get over that. Sadhu comes walking down the road all by himself, and Ratnagar steps out, and he's got a big, big, big scepter in his hand, a big scepter in his hand. Lifts it up and says, "Stop, halt, 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 I call you, halt." Sadhu's like, yes, 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 how can I help you? Give me your bowl. Okay. Sadhu gives him his bowl. And wouldn't you know it, there's a few coins in it. The Ratnagar takes the coins out, and he's being compassionate. He gives the sadhu back the bowl and says, "Now, give me your robes." See, the thing about sadhu robes is that because they're people who are ascetics, they're beggars, their robes can be either very nice or they can be very worn, or they could have been nice and have become very worn. But sadhu says, all right, takes the robes and gives them to Ratnagar. Ratnagar says, go along your way. And so the sadhu leaves. He had a brilliant idea, Ratnagar. I'm going to create a secondary market in used sadhu robes. And with that, his new business begins. He elevates his family from base robbery to robbing only the sadhus, only the holy people. And he managed to make a pretty good living at it. He started a little secondary market. He got a little, talked to somebody in the town and said, hey, I've got a source for sadhu robes, how about if I supply you with some? They made a good deal. Every day, he'd leave the house, he'd go out to the special place on the road and hide behind the rock and jump out and, ask the sadhus for their clothes, their robes, and their bowls, the contents of their bowls. And you can imagine the sadhus are ascetics. They're calm, they're peaceful, they're meditators. They didn't fight, they didn't scream, they didn't yell, they just gave him their things. Pretty good deal here, pretty good gig. Not too hard, he only had to work a few hours out of the day. Because usually what happened is, a sadhu could only stay in one place for 3 nights. So they leave the morning, after the 3rd night, they leave early in the morning because they want to get to the next place before the sun gets too hot and it's difficult outside. So he gets up at sunrise and he's got a pretty good gig going. Well, one day, there's a conference of sadhus. And they start talking among themselves. And it's very unusual for a conference of sadhus to occur. And one of them says, boy, I got robbed by this fellow a few months back. Nobody's ever heard of a sadhu being robbed. Pretty soon, 10, 12, 15, 20 sadhus at this conference are talking about how their robes were taken away and the contents of their bowls. And the noise got really, really, really loud. Stop, halt. We must call Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is going to help us. This is not acceptable. All the sadhus sat down and Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Well, something's going down there. Something's going on down there. Calls to his brothers, Brahma, Vishnu. There's some problem down on the earth. Do you want to take a trip down with me and see what's going on? Yeah. So off the 3 brothers go. And they find Ratnagar. They see him behind the rock as they're walking down the road. Now they know the place and they're immortal, they're omnipotent. They know what's going on. So they go down the road. And just as they're walking past the rock, Ratnagar jumps out and says, "Ah, give me your robes. Give me your bowls." And Lord Shiva lifts his eyes. Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, Brahma and Vishnu turn to Shiva and they say, and he, just with a little point, freezes Ratnagar. So he can't move. But he can talk. And he realizes he's in trouble. He's in big trouble. Now, this might sound like Ratnagar's a bad guy, but spiritually, he did what you and I, we need to do. I mean, he had a very single-pointed attention. Every day he got up and he went out to the road and he robbed the sadhus until he had enough. He had no hobbies. All of his hobbies were about trying to figure out every spare minute, how can I make it easier to take these robes and this wealth and these things from the sadhus? He didn't want to work any longer than he had to. He needed to make good money so that he could not only support his family, but he could finish his job up soon. very good at focusing his attention on one thing in his life, robbing the sadhus. He had patience. He'd wait outside that rock before sunrise every morning, 7 days a week. His wife thought he was going out for sunrise meditation. That's what he told her. But he was beside the rock, behind the rock. Self-discipline, good self-discipline this fellow had. Creative, used the power of his mind. Oh, he was creative. Every day, over and over and over again, he was thinking about, what can I do? How can I make this better? What can I do to make it easier for myself? Here he is frozen. And the Lord Brahma says, ever hear the laws of karma, Ratnagar? Ever hear the law of cause and effect? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have. Oh, you've got a little problem. Looks like you've got a little problem here. You have created some pretty difficult karma here. Well, if you let me go, we can go to my house. I know that my wife will take some of the karma from me. After all, I've been a good husband. I've added on to the house. We have an addition. We now have, a fan, a person who comes and fans her. No indoor electricity yet, but that was coming. So they go to the house. And Ratnagar walks in and he says, honey, I have a problem. In the courtyard, there's these three gods that came down. They say their names are Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva. And they're telling me that I've got some really, really hard karma because of robbing the sadhus. Because of what? What did you say? Well, robbing the sadhus. My job. How do you think we get all this, dear? Well, you told me you were a baker. A baker. And now you're telling me? You told me you were getting up before sunrise to meditate and to get to the bakery. And now you're telling me? What? Now you're telling me that you're a robber. I'm sorry, I can't help you. He goes out to see if his children will help him. And he realizes he can't ask them. He can't ask them to take the karma. And he goes back and he says to the gods, I'm sorry. No one seems to be willing to take this karma. I said, well, what you created, you have to dissolve. You have to transform. I'll tell you what, we're going to give you a mantra. They said, we're going to ask you to chant the name of Rama. Rama, 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 Rama. He could not do this. He started Ra, he couldn't say the name of God. Well, that's okay. Do it backwards. Your head has gotten all screwed up. Do it backwards. Mara Rama, Mara Rama, Mara Rama, Mara 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 Rama 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 Rama. He started backwards, and in time, Mara Rama 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 Rama. And they said, well, we keep chanting until we come back and tell you to stop. For a very long time, he chanted and chanted and chanted and chanted. Now, this is you and me. He comes from a long line of people that have a primary state of consciousness. And he's picked up on their state of consciousness. They were robbers. They were thieves. What were they robbing people of? They stole their happiness. They stole their joy. They stole their inner wealth. His whole family, all of his lineage, were robbers. How did they steal? Why, they stole by criticism of others. Why, they stole because every time that they would see something that was good going on, they'd find a way to stick a pin in it. Every time they saw something nice going on, they'd hurt the other person. They'd stick the pin in their mind. They'd stick the pin to deflate them. They were robbers, his whole family. Now, you think all along I've been talking about the family stealing goods. You think I was talking about them stealing the jewels. They were stealing the happiness. They were stealing the achievements. They were stealing the joy of everyone around them. Ratnagar, on the other hand, had decided that he was going to bring it down to earth. And instead of stealing other people's happiness, instead of stealing their meditative energies, instead of stealing their health, instead of stealing their equanimity, instead of stealing their love, instead of stealing and harming their ability to be compassionate, instead of setting up oppositions between people, he just decided to steal the sadhu's robes. Yeah, frankly, he was lazy. It was easier to him to steal the robes and the contents of the bowl than it was to do all these other things. Isn't that interesting? We think that non-greed, non-stealing from others is about not taking their material possessions. And most of you don't have that problem. But the problem is not that. The problem is, what do we do to others? But more so, my beloved, what do you do to yourself? What are you doing to yourself? Or you are stealing from yourself the joy in your life, the happiness in your life, the health in your life, the contentment in your life. What are you doing? Now, just as Ratnagar came from a family with a primary state of consciousness, and that primary state of consciousness was to steal from other people. We all have a primary state of consciousness that exists within our family, perhaps exists within our culture, certainly exists within our ethnic groups. And a primary state of consciousness that exists within us. And thus, what needs to be done? What's the key? Well, the first key really is to do what Ratnagar did. He examined the environment that he was sent to, his new environment. Every moment is a new environment for you and me. Every moment is a new opportunity to examine this, the thoughts that are rising in the mind, falling in the mind, rising, falling, rising, falling. Every moment. And he did examine. He was a very clever fellow, that Ratnagar. He knew that there had to be a better way to do what he was doing. He wanted to find the most efficient, perfect way. Intensity times duration equals force. He wanted to find the most perfect way to achieve his goal in the least amount of time with the least amount of effort. And he spent all of his time thinking about it, executing it, thinking about it, executing it, thinking about it. He should have been a musician or an inventor. But he was an inventor, like you are an inventor, like I am an inventor. He was. He was inventing his life through his concentration, through his use of all the skills that he had gained growing up, through his reformulation of his view of how he should be living his life. So what happened? Rama, 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 Ram. Rama, 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 Ram. Rama, Rama, Ram. Rama, Rama, Ram. After a few billion breaths, the sound reaches Devaloka. And the gods come over to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva and said, fellas, what's going on here? Yeah, there's something you did down there, and they're making a lot of noise down on the earth. It's very hard to meditate. It's hard to concentrate. We can't make our music, can't get things done. Can you see what's going on? Rama, 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 Rama. Oh, yeah. Brahma says, oh, yeah, that fellow, that Ratnagar fellow, we left him down there. I guess we better go down. Vishnu, it looks like you've been doing your job. He's been sustaining the mantra. Do they go down? And, if you've been to India, they have big ants, bigger ants than we see in other parts of the world. And these big ants make these gigantic, gargantuan anthills. So you'll see around the countryside in India, big, 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 big anthills. And they come to this big anthill and they hear rum, 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 rum. Well, Shiva is the destroyer, so he gently says to all of the ants, please disperse for a few minutes. Please, please, go, 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 go. So off they go. Nobody gets killed. They just go off. And in the center, there's this little yogi, this little aesthetic. Ram, 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 ram. Ram, 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 ram. And they look, and he's just radiating light, just radiating light, just glowing, 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 glowing light. Wow. That mantra did work, the brothers say to each other. Aha, it did, it did, it did. This is that Ratnagar. They tap him on the shoulder. Vishnu taps him and says, you can stop. Rama, 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 Rama. Brahma taps him and says, you can stop. Rama, 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 Rama. And Shiva taps him and says, you can stop. And with that, Ratnagar opens his eyes, says, oh, you came back. It's been such a short time. I'm so glad to see you. Boy, that mantra's nice. That mantra's really something. I stopped worrying about everything. The brothers looked at each other and said, a new name we are giving to you. Ratnagar, you are no more. Valmiki will be your name. And Rama, he will be coming down to incarnate. We would like you to write the story of his life. And that, by the way, is how the Ramayana was written. That's exactly how the Ramayana was written. By Valmiki, after all that chanting. But what do we learn? What is there for you and me? There is the need to say, to stop, to reflect. Oh, what's my primary state of consciousness? What's running through my consciousness? Now, one of the things that is running through many of us, for many of us, is the notion that life is pain and suffering. The notion that you can't get through life without pain and suffering. A few breaths ago, my Guruji was having some physical difficulties that caused his body pain. And I was with him, and I made the error of saying, I'm so sorry that you're suffering. And never again. I'm not suffering, disciple. You might be suffering. I'm not suffering. My body is having pain. My body is having difficulty, but I am not suffering. That's a powerful statement. And the tone of his voice, very clear. His spine just went, the energy, the currents went straight up, There's this distinct difference between an experience that is uncomfortable for the body, regardless of how uncomfortable it is, regardless of how much ouching it is. You can have that experience and not have the mental attitude of suffering. Life is not all pain and suffering. Number one. Number two, and this is an attitude that one really has to look carefully at and say, all right, how is this living within my being? And that is the attitude that failure is okay. Failure is okay. No, well, she couldn't do any better. Well, he couldn't do any better. Well, you can't do any better. Well, I couldn't do that. Now, it is true mystically that everything is as it is because this is how it is to be at this moment. If it were not, it would thus be otherwise. But that is very different than accepting the idea that your inability to accomplish something, that failure is to be accepted. Whatever failure means to you. Mystically, I would say, it's asking yourself at the end of the day, well, how well did I live this day? How well did I live this day? How many times did I lose my temper? How many times did my mind become angry? How poorly did I react in a given situation? How well did I react in a given situation? And then making the decision to change that. Now, oftentimes we don't realize how we're impacted. We don't realize how we're impacted by the thoughts. We don't realize how we're impacted by the primary thought of our society, of our culture, of our family. One of the greatest gifts of my life was a moment back in the 70s, sitting at the very back of the temple of Kriya Yoga. I often say as close to the back door as I could get without being out the door, so I could run if I needed to. Listening to Pranananda before I had asked for discipleship. Very, very early days. Maybe my second or third day with him. And he said, be happy. Just be happy. Just be happy. And I've often said that my mind screamed loudly. You could have heard it in the lokas, the heavens. That's a fine thing for you to say. But I'll tell you, until that moment in my life, no one, not one soul had ever spoken those words to me. No one had ever said, just be happy. In fact, a few years prior to that, my very, very dear, most beloved mother said to me one day, you've got to stop being so happy. You're going to get hurt really badly. You're too happy. You're going to be terribly disappointed. And when she said that, it was very powerful to have your mother say that. It was clearly a reflection of her own life and her own state of consciousness. But when I heard my guru, the beautiful soul who I have been so grateful to for all these years, when I heard Kriyanandaji say, just be happy, my mind was shocked. It came up with every excuse that you can imagine, Anger was one of the things, one of the emotions that arose, a feeling of that's not for me. I can't be happy. Not entitled to be happy. That's for other people to be happy. A feeling that, I remember thinking, that's a fine thing for you to say, Kriyananda. You're sitting up there with no responsibilities. I don't know what I was thinking, but that's what came to my mind. In that nice nice comfortable chair, teaching. That's a fine thing for you to say. And then my mind went through all the reasons that I couldn't be happy. In just like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. It just went boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. That's a lesson. One of the most important of the lessons of this incarnation for me. And I say for you, it is also. Just be happy. And it doesn't mean that life is going to be perfect. It means that you need to ask yourself, what happens to your mind? What happens to your mind stuff when you say, just be happy? When you hear that, if you hear me say, just be happy, what happens to your mind? What thoughts come up? What excuses come up? What emotions arise? One needs to find a primary state of consciousness that is going to be able to carry you through all the life experiences. Shortly after Swami Mayananda transitioned, Mark and I were in Cannes and with Kriyanandaji, and Mark was offering his condolences to Kriyananda, and Kriyananda said, well, I was happy before Rebecca was in my life this time. I was happy while Mayananda was in my life this time. And I'm going to stay and remain happy. And now that there's this time that she's not here. Yeah, it's the old Zen story of the man who loved his wife so dearly, loved her, loved her, loved her. And as is the way of life, one day she died. And her body died, right? And his best friend goes over and he hears him and he's playing the drums. Rama, 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 Ram, Rama, Rama, Ram. And his friend says, I came over to offer you my condolences. I thought that Matasita just died. Yes, she did. Yeah, she did. And he says, what's wrong? Did you stop loving her? What's wrong? You're singing, you're playing your drums, you're acting as if you're joy-filled, you're acting happy. Yes, that's right. I love her. She's a wonderful woman, wonderful wife. Love her very much. How much disrespect would it be if I fail to remember her goodness, fail to remember her love, fail to acknowledge her goodness, and ignore everything that she's brought into my life? We can't do that. To me, these are two great lessons, two examples of people saying, stop stealing. Do not steal from yourself. Do not steal from others. We weep and we wail when life changes because it's so terrible. Life changes. It's so terrible. Life changes. No, do not do that to yourself. Do not steal the moments of happiness and joy from yourself. Now, here's the practice. The practice begins with using reflection, contemplation, to really understand the nature of your underlying belief in the nature of life. And you really need to do some deep tarka about this, to ask yourself, what is it that I really believe? And, where did that come from? Is it mother, father? Where did that come from? Not to blame them, but to say, all right, I don't need to carry this thought, but I do need to understand it. And I need to be able to use a Kriya practice to transform it, to transmute it into something else. So you begin with tarka and reflection, and with gentleness, lack of criticism. No criticism. All you're trying to do is observe and understand. And so you wake up and you say, well, boy, I guess I didn't think that I could be happy, because I was told by my beloved mother that I shouldn't try to be happy, that I would get in trouble if I tried to be happy, if I was too happy. There's a limit on it, she said. Well, that's an interesting thought. Now, what do I do to change that? Well, as Ratnagar Valmiki chanted mantra, you begin by using an affirmation that you create yourself. In mystically speaking, the mind gloms onto and repeats things over and over and over and over. What we repeat is what manifests in our lives. And so if you have somebody say something to you over and over and over and over again, in time you begin to believe it. It's a problem when we let the thoughts of others overcome our own awareness, our own insight. And so the practice to change, to transform this, is to use a galactic statement in a progressive tense. So it doesn't matter if you're speaking Japanese, if you're speaking Norwegian, if you're speaking Danish, if you're speaking English or Italian. Your key is a progressive tense. I wish to become happier. I wish to become happier. I wish to become happy. You begin by asking yourself, really, not I am going to become happy or I am happy. No. But a commitment to yourself that this is what you wish. This is what you're willing to have come into your life. I wish to be happy. I wish to be happy. And then you find a way to create, again, in your own language, and I say your own language, I mean, it is best to be done in the language, your first language, the language that you first learned to speak. Many of you speak multiple languages, 3, 4, 5 languages. Go back to the language that mom and dad spoke to you in and begin to formulate this statement in that language. And so it may be something like, I am becoming happier and happier. Every day I am becoming happier and happier. And you add it to a little tune, you know, again, a little rhyming tune, you know, every day in every way. That doesn't sound so good. I don't think I want that one, you know, but every day in every way, happier, happier. You know, I'm not such a great singer, so you have to make your own sound. It doesn't matter. It can be, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be for you. Every day in every way, I am becoming happier and happier and happier. And then you need to repeat it. You need to do the japa, the repetition, so that over and over and over, you repeat it. Over and over and over, you repeat the words. Not once a day, not once a week, multiple times a day, you know, and get yourself a mala and, you know, 100 times, 108 times, repeat it. Link it to something, link it to a mantra, link it to an om. Om, I am becoming happier and happier. Every day in every way, I'm becoming happier and happier. In time, you will shift the trajectory of this thought that has been your primary thought, that has been the thought that the families have left with you. You will no longer become a thief. You will no longer steal the happiness from yourself through becoming too emotional. You will no longer steal the contentment in your life and from your family because of needs of greed or criticism of others. You spend your whole day worrying about what others think or criticizing others, and you're stealing from yourself. You're stealing your happiness, your joy from your life. Others don't need to do it to you. You need to stop doing it to yourself. And so I'd like to join our last few minutes in a meditation. But what I said today is really important. Ratnagar Valmiki really came from a family of thieves. They were people who were the kind of people that were just as nasty towards other people and critical of other people and, you know, looked beautiful, but were very mean in all their interactions with others. But what he gained is the capacity for self-reflection. And even though he took those skills of his family and brought them down to the earth and you know, used them and attacked the most devout people in the culture, he used concentration. He paid attention. He was focused on one thing. And I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if he did it because he was lazy. He used his skills to focus on one thing. And in doing that, he ultimately came to recognize the laws of karma. And then he applied those skills to transforming his life, his mind, the thoughts that rose and fell in his mind. And thus you and I can do the same thing. You can find happiness in your life, whatever that means to you, whatever it means to you. Or some of you, happiness is having 4 or 5 children. Oh, for me, that would not be so easy in this incarnation. For some of you, happiness is being a doctor or an artist or a computer guru. It doesn't matter. It's your life. You have the ability to be happy. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be happy in your life. And it starts just one step at a time, one day at a time. Take those thoughts of other people, the thoughts of their criticism, the thoughts of their negativity. One of the wisest things I heard somebody say once, one of my disciples had a piece of karma that she decided she wanted to own a restaurant. And she said to me one day, I can't believe how upset people get over a $6 omelet. Now you're getting it. Now you're seeing. Now that's the lesson. Don't let yourself become so upset about whether that 50-cent piece of toast is toasted the way you want it. Step out of the way of your mind. But I'll tell you truly, let go of all of the criticisms of others and stop criticizing others. Just let go. Just stop it. Your mind wants to do it. Say, fine, we'll come back later. We'll come back later. Not today. And in a few breaths, you're going to wake up and you'll find that happiness has come to reside at your sun center and to fill every cell of your being. And with happiness will come wisdom. With happiness comes wisdom. And you can draw it into your life again and again and again and again. And so let us please meditate for a few moments together. I realize we're running a little longer today than we usually do. But if you would join in a meditation, that would be wonderful. Shanti. Focus your attention at the sun center. And turn your head to the left with a double exhalation. Bring your head back to the center and begin to watch your breath. Pulling the energy of your body up to the sun center. Moving that energy as a golden ball of light out in front of you. Sweep to the left and behind and to the right, expanding that golden ball of light. And do this 2 more times. Now in your mind's eye, Ascend as high as you are able, ascending to the high place. And as you reach the high place, find your spot of meditation. From this place, you see a path in front of you, ascending up a mountain, and walk up that path through the forest. Until you come to a clearing. Entering the clearing, you see a shrine. It's perfect for you. It was built just for you. Enter into the shrine. You see the shrine filled with light. A brilliant, blazing light is coming from the back of the shrine. And you walk towards this. You're comfortable. You walk into the pool of light and see that it is fed by a waterfall of light. And walk back to this waterfall. Feel that your clothing has dissolved away. The old skin is dissolving away. Pouring upon your crown center, the white light fills every cell of your being. All of the heavy karmas are washing away. The light gently and surely dissolves away all the heavy karmas. As this happens, the body begins to ascend, lifting slightly off the floor. You feel the light. It is filling every cell of your being. When you are ready, you can walk out from the waterfall of light. feeling fresh, feeling refreshed, feeling vivified. At this moment, know that this healing shrine is here for you. Anytime you wish to return, this healing light is here for you. The karma will be softened as you come to this state of consciousness. The imbalances of the body and mind will be brought into balance. If you are ready, and only if you are ready, you may leave the shrine, knowing you can return at any time. And return to the place of meditation, the high place of meditation. From this place, let us join together with all the meditators gently share the Om Shanti mantra. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the powers that be bless you. May the powers that be heal you and vivify every cell of your being. May the powers that be heal you at all levels of your being, surely, harmoniously, swiftly, that you will have that which you need at this moment and with every breath that you breathe. Remember, you are immortal. The illness of this body, the illness of your physical body, it will be healed. You, your spirit, your soul, your memory track, this is immortal. You can be happy. You deserve to be happy. Choose to be happy. And if that mind says, oh, no, 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 I'm not happy, I can't be happy, say, well, I'd like to be happy. I want to be happy. I'm trying to be happy. Every day in every way, I am becoming happier and happier and happier. Whatever that means to you, my beloved, however it will bring joy to your life, this is what matters. You are blessed. You are a blessing. And I thank you for sharing your meditative energies with me, with this group, with this Sangha. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.